Hi, this is Scott Geitler. I'm the owner of Bluewater Photo and Bluewater Travel, and today I'm going to talk about a very exciting camera called the Sony RX100 VI. The Sony RX100 VI is very, very innovative for underwater photography because of one main reason. It has a very long built-in lens, up to 200 millimeters, which means it can do amazing macro and super macro photography. There are other small differences between the RX100 IV, RX100 V, but all you really need to focus on is the RX100 VI has a completely different lens than any other compact camera that you would normally consider for serious underwater photography. What I'm going to do is talk about the pros and cons of that long lens and compare it to the RX100 V. First of all, hands down, I think that the best compact, if you're looking for a small setup underwater, is the RX100 series. You want to be looking at the RX100 V or the RX100 VI, and if you go with the 6, you gain some functionality and lose some functionality. So I've been diving with these housings and these cameras a lot over the last couple weeks. Here I have the Nauticam RX100 VI. It's a nice small setup. I have a flip adapter on here for a macro lens. I can mount my focus light here. I've been using the Light in Motion and Kraken focus lights. I have some Stix floats, some beneath the surface floats, some CNC YST2 strobes, nice CNC carry handle. The Ikelite RX100 VI has also been nice to use underwater. Very straightforward, works well, small, sturdy, and a very nice price point compared to the aluminum Nauticam. But let's talk about this long lens and what it means for underwater. So the RX100 V, you can shoot macro and wide angle on the same dive. You can use a wet macro lens and you can use wide angle lens. Now, when you go to the RX100 VI, if you want to use macro and wide angle on the same dive, you have to switch the port to a different port. It's called a shorter port. But when you do that, it limits you to only 24 to 70 millimeter focal length, and sort of defeats the really amazing feature of this camera, which is the ability to zoom into 200 millimeters. I guess if you want to get that camera and you want to use it 200 millimeters on land, which is great for a small travel camera, and then shoot macro and wide angle underwater, then you want to get the short port. And both Ikelite and Nauticam support this short port. But again, if you don't need that long lens on land and you want to go that route, I would just recommend sticking with the RX100 V, which you don't need a separate port. It's just, you get the housing, your macro lens, wide angle lens, and you're good to go. Now, the way that I shot this camera underwater was in the regular port with the full zoom of the long lens. And what that means is I could zoom in and I can shoot small fish far away, but also I shot with several macro lenses, including the Bluewater +7. And when you zoom all the way into 200 millimeters, you can get incredible macro photos. I mean, tiny, tiny, small macro photos that you could not get with the other RX100 series cameras. You could not get with the G7X. The image quality was really good. You'll be able to look on our website, bluewaterphotostore.com, and see some of these sample images. And I'll be shooting more over the next few weeks also, so you can see how this camera performs. If you want to use a macro lens, the problem is that the standard ports that come with these housings don't support just screwing on a macro lens. So for the Nauticam housing, you have to get a special flip adapter that's made just for this port. It's not cheap, but it works quite well. Ikelite, I don't have their custom flip adapter yet, so I was not able to shoot super macro in their standard port, but it works the same way that the Nauticam housing would work. One very important point I want to make is that not all macro lenses will be able to focus properly or give good sharp results when you zoom this lens in. I tested about 10 different macro lenses, and some worked well and some didn't, and there really didn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. So If you already have a macro lens and you want to use the RX100 VI and zoom into 200 millimeters, it's very important to check with us to see if your macro lens will give good results. And if you don't have one, then go with one of our recommendations. And you don't want to start off with too strong a macro lens if you haven't had a lot of experience with super macro, because it'll be too hard to use. So for example, using the Bluewater +7, it's not a super strong macro lens, but it's easy to focus and it gives very good results, and you can get very small subjects with it, and it's a very light, less expensive macro lens. So that's what I would recommend starting out with. It's a nice, small, lightweight, easy to use setup underwater. I highly recommend it. Nauticam housing worked great. My only thing I wasn't a huge fan of was this trigger for the shutter on the handle. It's in a very comfortable place, but sometimes it was a little tricky pushing down to get the shutter to fire. So I do like pushing the shutters directly on the housing, even though it's not as convenient on the handle. I said the Ikelite housing was very solid, worked nicely. This is actually the short port right now on the Ikelite housing, where you can use a macro or wide angle lens, but you cannot zoom into 200 millimeters. You can only zoom into 70 meters. In conclusion, the RX100 VI, very powerful, sharp photos for macro. You got that amazing 24 to 200 millimeter lens you can use on land and underwater, but it does come with some limitations in terms of what wide angle lenses and ports. So if you have any more questions about that, please don't hesitate to contact us at sales@bluewaterphotostore.com. And thank you very much for watching.